So what are some examples of breaches? Believe it or not, these are all breaches, and regulation kind of goes into detail. Let's assume that you faxed Mrs. Jones' records to the wrong person. You've got the wrong fax number. That is, going back to the definition, it's an unauthorized disclosure of PHI. So, that's a breach. And if we do it to one person, they're going to have certain obligations. I'm sorry, if we send it to one individual that we know it's a wrong number, and we find out it's a wrong number, then we're going to have certain obligations to make regarding this breach. Now, remember, if we can prove that the fax was never opened, that nobody ever looked at it, then we don't have any obligations to make a breach notification. But, the examples are pretty clear in the regs that, you mail or fax an appointment notice to the wrong person. Unless we can prove that they never saw it or the mail was never opened, then we have a breach. What about unauthorized conversations about patients? This is the kind of talk that you have in the elevator saying, Mrs. Smith was in, or, maybe a celebrity that everybody knows who Mrs. Smith might be, had some certain condition. That is a breach. We notice that's not an electronic activity. That's an actual discussion. Well, that could be a breach. What if we release protected health information without a business associate agreement? Here we're a physician. We practice. We're using Joe's billing company, and for whatever reason, we decided not to use a business associate agreement when one was obviously required. That's a breach. And as a consequence, we would have certain breach obligations. We have obligations to the patient, obligations to the public that we'll talk about. What about if we use the data more than is necessary? This is a situation where we are absolutely clear to call up the X-ray department and say, we're going to send you, Mr. Jones needs an X-ray. And, oh, by the way, Mr. Jones has some type of communicable disease that has nothing to do with the radiology issues that are going on. That's a breach. We have an obligation under HIPAA to disclose no more than that which is minimum necessary for the treatment or activity disclosed. Malware attacks, it's kind of ransomware, right? I mean, all of a sudden we have ransomware. All of a sudden we have malware attacks. We've locked down the computer. What's happened? We've had an unauthorized access. An unauthorized person has made access to our data. So maybe we have a breach, and we have to think about what are our obligations. Now we know we have a breach. And the clearly easy one is the lost devices. The laptop is stolen, you lose your cell phone, and we don't have the ability to wipe the phone immediately, or the data is not encrypted. Now remember, there's an exception. It's not a breach if it's kind of impossible for the person who got the lost laptop to use the data, to see the data, to manipulate the data. If it's encrypted on the device, and that's not a breach. So it kind of gets you a get-out-of-jail-free card if you make sure that all your data is encrypted and has all the proper passwords in it.